Hey guys, what's good? I'm Andre and today I want to go over a couple of different securities with you guys, but before we do that I want to just do a short lesson about shorting into strength. After we do that I want to look at NatGas because I think we're about to break out of a really important area here, and then we'll look at Bitcoin. And I had a request from one of you guys yesterday about a couple of Japanese yen pairs from Forex, so we're gonna look into those as well. I will leave chapters down below, timestamps as per usual. Feel free to jump ahead to whatever interests you the most. And thank you so much once more for all of your support throughout the last few videos, guys. It helps me tremendously to understand what you guys want to see from the channel when we see those subscribes and likes, so please keep them coming if you see value in the content. Now let's get started with the lesson here, guys. I want to talk about shorting into strength because I've seen so many people just ask about whether or not it's time to short NVIDIA, time to short Apple, time to short AMD, Amazon, and so on and so forth. Obviously the examples can continue. We've had a couple of these mega cap stocks just completely rip upwards despite an unbalanced macroeconomic environment, in my opinion. But I see a lot of you guys eager to short them, and let's discuss that and let's see what would be a more conservative way of doing what otherwise would be pretty risky. So let's take a look at NVIDIA, guys, because a lot of you guys have been asking, is it time to short NVIDIA here, 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 here? Now, why would you short NVIDIA here? What is different here about NVIDIA that wasn't applicable here, that wasn't applicable here? I just don't understand the impatience. What is so important that we need to short NVIDIA into so much strength? What I would probably recommend before anything else, before even considering shorting, would be to allow NVIDIA to fall beneath its moving average on a relative strength against the S&P kind of basis, or if you want to take the relative strength against the Qs, that's fine. I usually use a 10 moving average just to smooth out the otherwise pretty intense noise that we have here. And if you guys take a look here, we've had a period where NVIDIA started to outperform its average, but it still wasn't enough, guys. It still wasn't enough for NVIDIA to track back. So I will ask you again, what is shortable about NVIDIA here? And honestly, my answer is absolutely nothing. I wouldn't touch NVIDIA with a 5-foot pole, much like the Grinch, unless we get a break below a trend line, a retest from below, and a fail, and then this is where you could potentially add something to a short NVIDIA. Otherwise, we are already at all-time highs for this one security. It's a lot of strength going into here. There's a lot of volume. There's a lot of power here. I understand that it's massively overbought, but this is not enough for us to short it. If we take a look at Apple, for instance, it's a lot easier to look at Apple and say, okay, so we might have kind of a supply zone over here. We might have kind of a supply zone over here. So maybe one of these ends up holding. We have spiked above the bigger supply zone, but we've fallen below. So maybe this one does end up holding. So while for Apple, I can understand the hypothesis of shorting, for NVIDIA, in my opinion, you're simply rolling the dice on something that you think might happen. And if you're somebody that has a big portfolio and understands the risk and understands and fully commits to losing your entire position on that short, that's fine. But if you're somebody that's starting out, do something else with your time, do something else with your money. There's a lot of other opportunities on the market that are a lot easier to trade. I feel like you're running headfirst into a pretty intense battle that you don't know a lot about. If you take a look at Apple too, check out the relative strength against the S&P, and you're gonna see that it's starting not only to underperform its 10-day moving average here, but it's also on the cusp of falling beneath the zero line, meaning that it's starting to slowly but surely underperform the S&P. Now, I would love a situation where Apple remains in this area-ish, give or take, but we fall beneath zero, we retest zero from below, and this would be an amazing place to start shorting Apple. Hopefully the chart can confirm that. And again, you can do exactly the same thing here. I feel like with Apple, the trend line is even easier to establish. You just drag any sort of trend line like this. Don't overcook it. You don't need your trend lines to be absolutely perfect. You just need them to make sense and wait for a breakdown. We've broken down. We've retested either a 0.5 fib or the trend line from below or this supply area again. And then we formed a higher low and we are going down again, you can start adding to your position. We have touched base again on this low that we formed previously. You can add again. We've crossed that low and are forming lower lows. You can add again. You can probably take this all the way down to, I would say, 156 bucks if it works out. Obviously, again, as I was saying, this is not an ideal trade because there's a lot of power into these securities right now. Now let's move on to NatGas here, guys. I love the way this is shaping up. So we had a really important day yesterday. I keep covering this on my channel. I keep posting about it on my Patreon as well. Again, free posts on Patreon. Feel free to check those out. You don't need to be subscribed for a tier to see a lot of value content. You do get a lot more for a tier though, and it's just $5 for what it's worth. So we are retesting this area. As you guys can see, yesterday's candle was really important. We went down aggressively, and then we created this massive wick. As my good friend James from ArchisFX says, great save, Natty. And exactly, it was an amazing save from NatGas. I would love for this to break above this trend line, and if we do break above this trend line, I don't think there's anything stopping NatGas until roughly 2.46 at the earliest. Now obviously anything and everything can happen. We can have a new piece hit today or tomorrow that completely invalidates everything we're saying here, but it's looking good. MACD continues to improve. I like this. I think it's starting to look better and better by the day here. So hopefully we do manage to get a break above and go from there. Next up, Bitcoin, guys. So for Bitcoin, I posted this a couple of weeks ago, I believe. We had this massive head and shoulder formation getting created over here, validated by volume. So for a head and shoulders, we're looking for big volume on the left shoulder, very small volume on the head, check, and then equally small volume on the right shoulder, check. So this is 100% a head and shoulders formation. We broke below the neckline, which is time to add a position. So you would add a position here on the break of the neckline. You would not try to guess where the top of the right shoulder would be forming, although that might be tempting. This might never form into a head and shoulder formation, and we might go from here to above the head, and it completely invalidates the formation. So don't try to do that. We only take a short from the break of the neckline. We did that. We took some profits here. I'm not in a position anymore, but it was a fantastic opportunity to add again here a short. I didn't, but I still feel like we can go all the way down to 24 on Bitcoin, which would be somewhere around this area. It's obviously, it would help eat up all of this demand that was formed over here, and it would also probably line up with the 200-day moving average pretty sweetly by the time we get there. Finally, guys, I'm gonna cover the couple of requests from yesterday, and again, please feel free to send your requests through. I'm gonna do my best to cover as many of them as I can and as I can fit into my schedule. Now we've got a couple of Japan yen pairs here. The first one is Euro Japan yen. So for this guy, I semi like it. So the thing is that there's quite a few different yen pairs that need to go lower. I don't think that this is the weakest though, I need to admit. In my opinion, if we manage to get a clear break down below the 40 moving average, which you guys can see has been pretty decent support on this entire move up, then that might be a good opportunity for us to play it all the way down to the 200 or maybe to this trend line, or both. If you're in a position and you can kind of trail your stop loss, that's fantastic. I'm not sure I would add to a position here. I think that for British pound yen, the position is a lot better, for instance, because again, what I was talking about a bit earlier with the other securities, we got the break below, we are now getting a retest, and hopefully we can make the 3-step of going and forming a lower low. Now obviously this is TBD, but I think this is looking better. On the USDJPY pair, that was also a request. I don't hate this. I actually like this better than I did the Euro pair. This is kind of on a grander scheme. It could form into a head and shoulders. You guys can see that I have this doodled into here. We have a demand zone just overhead. So I wouldn't be surprised, a demand zone that wasn't hit quite yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if we retest the underside of this trend line here and the demand zone before we start moving lower. For the meantime, this looks a tad bit more bullish than bearish, but still I do see the point in tracking the Japan pair, so I think you guys are on the right track. Just maybe be careful with position sizing and timing. Guys, check out our Patreon. We constantly post a lot of really good content. Again, some of it is free, some of it is for just $5 a month, and then we have a higher tier from there. Thanks so much for watching the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care, guys.